So I figured while we're on the subject of elementals, let's have a little look at each one in a bit more depth. And also let's consider another part that we have. Also, like I always say, it's not necessary, but it is quite nice. Now, just picked up my phone. Give me a moment, because I thought, let me show you something. So over here in this corner, it's all a bit messed up there at the moment, is my little altar. Okay, it's my permanent altar that I have in the living room. But when I'm doing a ritual, I set up a new altar, because that's just my everyday, always there altar, which needs a bit of a tidy up, as you can see. And in general, on your altar, what you want to have is correspondences for each element. And and then you add things to it for whatever ritual you're performing. Like going back to Samhain, you would have, I was about to say pineapples, but I mean pumpkins. You'd maybe have a pumpkin on there to represent the harvest. So not all of us can have or are able to openly celebrate and show that we are pagan. So there's certain things that you could have that are on an altar but aren't obvious, you know. And you could have natural things as well. So if any of you are interested, I do have a witchcraft basics info pack that's totally free. If you give me your or say, can you PM me, and I'll PM you and send me your email and I send it out to you for free, because it's got a lot of ideas on there for what I'm about to go through. So getting back on point, starting with the East and with air. Examples that you could have, yellow, by the way, this is the symbol for air, and the colour for air is yellow. I forgot to say that on my previous video, that the reason for the different colours is exactly that. Yellow is for air. Now, you would think maybe it should be white, but white is more the colour of spirit, you know, the colour of clouds, like, you know, the intangible, you know. So, yeah, you could have anything in the colour yellow to represent the air elemental, if you need to perhaps hide your worship. More natural things, very obvious things, are feathers. I've got a whole, let me show you my little basket of collected stuff there. I've got a whole basket in the middle of my coffee table, a bit of a womble in that. I love collecting sticks and moss and animal skulls and feathers. So anyway, yes, back to the point. Correspondences for air. Feathers are obvious ones, but the incense is another one, because of course it burns off into smoke, which is of course air. I'm just trying to think. You could have some crystals. So you could have a yellow crystal, citrine would be one. If you just want to have a collection of crystals on a nightstand or whatever. So that one is air. So when you're connecting with the air elemental, I don't always expect it to be sort of airy, because you've got to bear in mind what it stands for, and it stands for thinking. So thoughts, engaging with memories, engaging with your mind, in other words. So books are a, you know, when you go, if you go on a meditation to engage with the air elemental, it might present you with books, because books are of course thinking, knowledge written down, of course. So yeah, that would be another thing you could have on your nightstand if you can't openly show that you're pagan. It's just a book, you know. You know what it is. And that's all that really matters. As I say over and over again, it is about your connection. So as I was saying, to connect, you sort of get yourself in a comfy position where you're not going to need to twitch or move about. And close your eyes and consciously feel your toes, relax your toes. Feel your ankles, relax your ankles. And then so on and so forth, all the way up the body. And then, oh yeah, before you do all that, pop yourself on some music, light some incense, whatever it is you want to do. As you know from previous videos, I find heavy metal something that I can relax to. You might like sort of hippie panpipes or something like that, but whatever gets you chill, you know. And then get your focus onto air. Maybe you've heard a bird outside or seen a bird outside your window. Engage with the bird and follow the bird where it goes. And as I say, don't always expect it to be literal. Like when I get onto water, when I was engaging with the water elemental, I didn't feel wet, which I know sounds a bit odd, But of course, it's what the elemental represents is what you're connecting with, you know. And yeah, it is quite interesting, the sort of things that you'll engage with as you engage with each elemental. But never forget to let them go, you know, because part of the Fae is that they like to do their own thing, and you kind of want to be in control with what they do in this realm, because they don't belong in this realm. This is not their tangible realm. In their realm, they have physical touch bodies, just as we do in this realm. You know, when we call them into this realm, they are not tangible. So I think it can be confusing for them. So it's important to let them go or send them back to their realm. Anywho, so that is correspondences for air, which I thought was quite interesting. And as I mentioned before, the creatures are the sylphs, and I sort of think of sylphs as being almost dragonfly-like, you know. And the archangel Raphael, if you connect with the angels, I don't, then you'd know a little bit more about Raphael. I don't. And if you do, please let me know, because I'm always interested in learning more. But I personally don't like to connect with angelic energy, because I find them a bit angry, and yeah, I don't like them. So anywho, that is air. I'll speak to you on the next one, which will be fire. See you in a bit. So next up, let's look at the fire elemental. And this is one that I quite enjoy as one of my bad habits. Very obvious one. A lighter. Just have a lighter on your side, box of matches, candle. But let's consider it here. You know, we look at fire, excuse my very deformed hands, and it is something that is made, okay? It is not something that occurs naturally. Certain things have to happen in order for fire to come into being. So when we are calling on these things, or blessing our altar, which is the second step, I will go through the ritual steps at some point, but blessing your altar, you are blessing the creatures of them. Air is naturally occurring. Fire isn't. So fire is a made thing, and it is more out of control than the other elementals, if you think about it. So fire, we think of fire, oh, it burns, but also it brings life. There are certain plants in the world, can't think of any off the top of my head, that need extreme temperatures or fire in order for them to germinate and come to life. You know, fire is nourishing. You know, us in Northern Europe, I think we'd die if we didn't have fire or warmth, you know. So consider all the history, perhaps the human history connected with these elementals as you go on your elemental journey. Just popping back to air for a moment, we didn't know air until we could test it scientifically. We knew it was there, we could feel it in the wind, etc. So yes, even air can be destructive if you think of not thunderstorms, hurricanes, cyclones, typhoons, etc. You know, so they are destructive as well as life-giving. So there's that duality, and that's another reason why we call them in, because it connects with the duality of being human as well. You know, the Fae aren't separate from us, they're just like us. Everything on this earth and in all the realms that we can connect to have similarities to us. Anywho, I went off topic. So fire, certain things you could have. Fire is red or orange there, which are rather obvious colours, to be fair, because fire is red and orange most of the time. And certain things you could have on your altar, very obvious, would be a candle. But for example, in my little travel altar, I can't carry a candle around and light it in hotels. You know, when I'm doing work away from home, I like to bring my little travel altar with me. Yeah, just for me, you know what I mean? Helps keep your little space protected. And you can't light a candle, so what else could you do? You could have anything red on it. You know, red crystal, like oh, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Carnelian, that's one. It's sort of a dark orangey red, is something you could have. But fire being something that you create, if you can't show your worship, if you're a smoker, it's obvious you have matches or a lighter and you know it's there for you, you know, and for your worship, you know. But you could have, I don't know, because it connects with your passions, you could have maybe a love heart. You know what I mean? Or perhaps a book of poetry, because poetry has been created. Those are all ideas for those who can't obviously show their worship. More natural things that you could use, perhaps a red rose, you know, to represent fire without it being actual fire, you know. So yeah, those are a few ideas there. So when you connect with fire, understand that it is quite a powerful entity. When I connect with fire, I feel it's way more kind of angry and passionate, all those very high emotions, more so than perhaps air, or, which is lighter. You know what I mean? So again, go through your meditation, you know, and perhaps take yourself to a volcano in your mind and feel that that roar, you know. But in this case, it is way more important to remember your grounding, because fire, it wants to consume, you know, because that's what keeps it alive. So you have to be very aware of it not consuming you, you know. So yeah, those are some ways to connect with the fire elemental. And again, you have there the salamanders, and of course salamanders are actual real creatures, so they're little lizards that live in the desert, adorable little things. So that is certainly something quite tangible in this realm that you could connect to. And of course the corresponding archangel is Michael, or Michael, the Archangel Michael. And again, if you know a little bit about Michael and why he connects with fire, what representations does he have, then do please get in touch. No, just a side point, when I'm going to add this to the rest of my videos, I just forgot it for air, but they also correspond with the suits in tarot. Okay, so air is the swords suit, because swords have a swishy sound they make in the air. Fire, being something that is created, is in fact the wands suit, because wands of course make things happen. Okay, so that can add to your divination as well, connecting the elementals with the tarot suits. Okay, I think perhaps I'll do a tarot video specifically talking about those, but anywho, so that is fire, my lovelies. So again, let me know how you get on, and next up we will look at water. So water, probably the easiest one to have a correspondence even on your side table. When you have to hide or worship, you know, a bottle of drink, very simple. Anything liquid, of course, or something more abstract, perhaps a little chalice or a little mini horn like I've got here, a little mini horn. And on that subject, one of the aspects of the elemental of water is the birth aspect, because of course babies are grown in water. Your water has to break in order for babies to be born. And the chalice represents the female, the womb. Okay. Sorry, I've got one of my dogs whining over here. Give me 1 second. Come on, settle down. You're all right. Hey, you're all right. You're not stuck. Apologies for that. She'll probably come over in a moment. She gets a little bit nervous if I'm not too near her. Anywho, so water, going back to water. So the correspondence with tarot, very quickly, is of course the chalices, the cups. And when we get on to the Lord and Lady, this is the representation of the lady. We'll get there. I'm going off subject. So I'm actually holding it the wrong way up. That is your symbol for water, and very obviously blue for water. Now, as I said previously, when you connect with water, you may not feel wet, which might throw you off a little bit. Don't be thrown off by it, because even connecting with fire might make you feel cold. Because we've got to understand the absence, the opposites, the duality of these things, you know. So when I was connecting with water, I felt dry, but I also felt fluid. Like my body was moving, my mind was flowing. And of course, ultimately, that's the reason we call water in, is to help us to control our emotions, because water does directly correlate with emotions. But we need our emotions to flow. You know, if we hold on to an emotion for too long, it can become quite toxic, you know. So it helps us not just to feel, but also to flow, you know. So yes, going through your little meditation to connect with water, again, understand that it can also be wishy-washy, it can be unclear. You know, if you think of water moving, you can't see your reflection. Still water you can. And there's obviously the destructive forces of water, tsunamis, high tide, floods, etc. You know, many of us have actually experienced that just recently. Is floods and how water can be quite destructive. You know, but it's also, of course, life-giving, not just in the literal sense that we're born through water, us as mammals. But also that water nourishes and feeds plants and everything. You know, so next time you get caught in the rain, remember this is necessary. It's very necessary for everything to grow, you know. So yeah, water, excuse me. Like I say, a few things to be aware of is to not get carried away with it, to maintain your control, be like a rock in the river, and to also allow it to flow through you, and don't be put off if you don't feel wet like you expect to be. So creatures associated are the underlings. The underlings, I sort of think of them kind of like mermaids in a way, and the archangel Gabriel or Gabriel. So yeah, so that is a water. Like I say, the color is blue. Yeah, and natural substances, I forgot. You know, well, water is natural. You know, tap water, you know, of course that's been manipulated, but you could go and buy yourself a bottle of Buxton water, Buxton spring water, or go and get a little bit of water from any local water source that you have, which you can keep in a little bottle and use over and over again, you know. So yeah, water. And next up we'll talk about earth. So talking about earth now, and earth is probably one of the easiest to get correspondences for, starting with, if you have to hide your practice, if you like, sticks, flowers, anything that comes from the earth, you know. Got a little dried rosebud here. Roses my husband bought me for my birthday. But anywho, so you've got your dried roses, you know, you can just have fresh flowers always. Any crystal represents earth. Any crystal whatsoever, because they all come from the earth, especially your more raw rather than tumblestone and polished crystals. I'm not a crystal person, but you know, I have a few because they're shiny and I like shiny things. So the colours for earth would be green or brown. Natural items, we've just gone through a couple, or just a little stick. I found some ivy growing, and this was just sort of lying on the ground next to the tree that was overwhelmed with ivy. So I thought I'll nab that and I'll pop it in my little basket full of bits and bobs that I've collected. Pebbles, rocks, you know, anything that attracts you or draws you in, it is all representative of earth. The commonest used thing would be salt, but it would be rock or sea salt. And of course, sea salt can represent the water as well, you know, as well as seashells. I forgot about seashells, you know, you could pop a couple of seashells out. But not table salt, because again, it's been manipulated, it's been grown in a lab, so it's not natural, you know. But if you can't afford rock or anything, table salt will do, you know what I mean? You don't have to spend a lot of money on this, you really don't. So anything green. I sometimes like to change my tablecloths, so I'll have a corresponding tablecloth for the element or for the Sabbat. And I'm pretty sure I went through the colours for Sabbats, but when I go through the Sabbats next year, I'll try and remember to add colours to them. But anywho, corresponding to the tarot, the earth would be the pentagrams or the coins. Because again, those are things that are grounding, that relate to your everyday life. So matters of career, money, etc. But we call in the earth elemental for grounding and protection. So when you do connect with the earth, you may find yourself carried away, even though earth is grounding, it's solid. But let's not forget that it's not always solid, because there's always that duality of every elemental. Earthquakes, I'm trying to think, landslides, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but you know, when the earth just merges with the water and you get like a flash flood, I can't remember what that's called, but it can be very destructive. But of course, overall, it is where everything is grown from. You know, it's where we go when we die, whether we're buried or have our ashes spread. It is everything, you know. It is the center to all things. So it can be quite an overwhelming elemental to connect with, because it can take you to so many different places, you know. So you do need, and the whole point of it is to ground yourself, you know, and maintain your solidity, if you know what I mean, if that's even a word, you know. Remain solid with it, you know. So yeah, who are connected with it? The gnomes, of course, in the northern tradition, the gnomes work underground. And so anything underground, you could envision a mole or an earthworm, one of those creatures that spend a lot of time underground. So that's quite interesting. That's interesting little journeys you could go on with that. And the archangel is Uriel. So Uriel, and again, if you know anything about Uriel and why he correlates with the earth or the north, then do please get in touch. I might go and research it myself actually, but you know, I don't connect generally with angels. But anyway, so those are your 4 elementals. Here's one of my puppies. This is little Moo Moo pup. Those are your 4 elementals, and like I say, connecting with them helps you to gain a greater understanding of what they are, the wholeness of them, and why we use them in a ritual setting. So I would highly recommend you spend some time doing some elemental meditation as you get started. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Again, any comments, go ahead, but if you're a dick, I'll be a dick back. You know what I mean? See you soon, lovies.